This is the last video about alchemy you'll ever need to watch, and I'm going to show you straight up everything they've been hiding from you and why this knowledge can change your entire life. If this video found you, it wasn't by accident. Alchemy isn't something you choose, it chooses you. This calling only shows up when your mind starts waking up from the illusion it was programmed to live in. From ancient Egypt, through the Greek temples, all the way to the secret labs of the Middle Ages, the same secret has been protected, hidden, and coded. A knowledge so powerful it had to be covered up with symbols and metaphors just to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. But why hide it? Simple. Because real alchemy was never about turning lead into gold to get rich. That was always just a cover story. The real transmutation happens inside you. It's about transforming your own being. The person you believe you are, full of beliefs, traumas, fears, and inherited stories, is nothing but a shell, a program installed in you since you were a kid. And who would you be if you could break that shell? What would be left if you freed yourself from everything they told you you were? The ancient masters knew reality isn't fixed. Everything can be transmuted. Human beings can literally rebuild themselves from scratch, being born again into a whole new consciousness. But for that to happen, first you need to die. Symbolically, not your body but your ego, your illusions, your so-called certainties. But now your time has come. You're standing right in front of the portal. You can ignore it, close this video, and keep living like you always have. Or you can walk through this portal with me and find out everything they've been keeping from you. It's your choice, but if you feel that calling echoing inside you, stick with me till the end, because I'm going to break down alchemy for you in a way no one's ever done before. Alchemy wasn't born, it's always existed. Since the dawn of humanity, it's been whispering to those who are ready to listen. But like all powerful knowledge, it was hidden, coded into symbols, written in metaphors only the initiated could decipher. Ever wonder why? The ancient Egyptians knew reality was way more than what your eyes can see. To them, matter and spirit were just different forms of the same energy. Nothing was really separate. Nothing was only physical or only divine. Everything was part of a constant cycle of transformation, and anyone who could master that process would have the power to shape their own existence. That's why alchemy was born in the lands of Kemet, ancient Egypt, the Black Land. But black not because it was dark or sinister, but because it held the secret of creation itself. The Egyptian priests understood the chemistry of the elements, but to them it wasn't just science. It was magic. Gold wasn't just a precious metal, it was the skin of the gods. Mummification wasn't just a method of preservation, it was proof that matter could be purified and transformed, defying death itself. And that's when one name started to echo through the temple halls. Hermes Trismegistus. A man, a god, a myth? Doesn't matter. What matters is what he left behind. A knowledge that survived time and crossed entire civilizations. Among his writings, one fragment stood out, the Emerald Tablet, a piece of pure wisdom, a revelation about the structure of the universe. And in just one sentence, he dropped the ultimate secret. As above, so below, as within, so without. This wasn't just some poetic line, it was a code. The whole universe works like a mirror, a reflection. What's out there in the cosmos is reflected in the microcosm of the human being. What happens in your mind happens in your reality. What you carry inside you shapes everything you experience outside. The Egyptians knew that, and they applied this principle to everything. Their temples were aligned with the stars because they understood that the heavens influence the earth. Their alchemical formulas weren't just for turning metals into gold. They were for transforming their own consciousness. That's how real transmutation became possible, but this knowledge couldn't just be handed to anyone. The danger wasn't in the formula itself, but in what could happen if it was used without wisdom. Because what can create can also destroy. What can bring light can also blind. And so, the secrets were protected, hidden in symbols, passed down only to those who were ready. Centuries passed. The world changed. But alchemy never disappeared. It just waited. And now it's found you. The secret of the ancient alchemists. The secrets of Hermes Trismegistus crossed through time, guarded inside Egyptian temples and protected by the initiates. But the fate of alchemy wasn't locked to the banks of the Nile. Like an underground river, this knowledge found new lands, new people, new minds ready to receive it. When Egyptian civilization started to decline, ancient Greece became the new cradle of transformation. The Greek philosophers didn't just preserve alchemical knowledge, they refined it. Plato taught that the visible world was nothing more than a shadow of a deeper reality, an imperfect reflection of eternal ideas. Aristotle, on the other hand, described matter as something always in motion, something that could be shaped, transmuted. And in that meeting point between philosophy and science, alchemy started taking a new form. The Greeks studied the elements, classifying them into earth, water, fire, and air, the building blocks of the universe. But the alchemists knew that was only the surface. The real secret lay in the fifth element, the ether, the invisible force that connected everything, the key to true transmutation. That's how alchemy started being seen not just as a physical practice, but as a philosophical path, a journey to understand the essence of the universe and the self. But the knowledge didn't stop there. As the Roman Empire expanded and Greece declined, alchemical writings spread, preserved in hidden libraries, protected by those who understood their true value. And it was at the heart of the Islamic world that the flame of alchemy burned even brighter. While Europe sank into darkness, the scholars of the East expanded what they had inherited from the Egyptians and the Greeks. Islam didn't just embrace alchemical knowledge, it took it to a whole new level. For Muslim scholars, alchemy wasn't just a way to manipulate metals, it was a way to understand the nature of Allah, the creative force that shapes everything. And no one dove deeper into this mystery than Jabir ibn Hayyan, known in the West as Geber. Jabir understood that everything in creation was governed by hidden laws, patterns that could be deciphered and used to transform not just matter, but the soul itself. He systematized alchemy like never before, describing chemical processes, detailing formulas, and laying down principles that would influence science for centuries. To him, the search for the philosopher's stone wasn't just about making physical gold, it was about reaching spiritual perfection. But while the Islamic world respected alchemy as divine knowledge, in medieval Europe it was twisted into something dangerous, forbidden, almost demonic. The Church saw any attempt to manipulate matter as a challenge to God's laws. After all, if alchemists could turn lead into gold, who's to say they wouldn't try to challenge creation itself? And that's how alchemy started being hunted down. But like every forbidden flame, it never went out. It just found new ways to hide, new codes, new symbols, waiting for those ready to see beyond what was allowed. When alchemy became dangerous. Alchemy never disappeared. It just changed shape, hid in the shadows, and slipped through the centuries, masked under symbols and metaphors only true initiates could understand. But there was a time when anyone daring to seek this knowledge risked paying with their own life. The fires of the Inquisition didn't just burn bodies, they burned ideas, and medieval Europe became a silent battlefield between those who guarded the secrets of transmutation and those who wanted to wipe them out. At first, alchemy was still respected. Monks copying ancient texts kept its knowledge alive, and some scholars even believed the search for the philosopher's stone could be a spiritual journey that aligned with Christian faith. But as the Church tightened its grip on power, any knowledge that challenged its authority became a threat. And it didn't take long before alchemists were labeled heretics, witches, enemies of divine order. That's how alchemy fell from light into darkness. To survive, alchemical masters had to become masters of disguise. What once was openly shared between wise men now had to be coded. Gold came to mean spiritual enlightenment, not material wealth. Lead represented a mind trapped in ignorance, waiting to be purified by the fire of knowledge. But even with these layers of symbolism, the persecution was relentless. Roger Bacon, one of the greatest minds of his time, dared to question dogma and explore the hidden secrets of nature. He believed the world was governed by laws that could be understood and even manipulated, and that real transmutation was about the mind and the soul. But his ideas made him a target of suspicion, and he spent years under watch, with his works censored and his legacy shadowed by controversy. Nicolas Flamel, on the other hand, became a legend. Officially, he was just a Parisian scribe, but something about his story didn't add up. Records show that he somehow gained knowledge no ordinary man could have had access to. Some say he discovered the Philosopher's Stone, achieved immortality, and amassed unimaginable wealth. But anyone who understands alchemy knows that gold was never physical. Flamel wasn't trying to just transform metals. He was trying to transform the very essence of the human soul. Even within the church itself, there were those who tried to reconcile alchemical study with faith. St. Thomas Aquinas, one of history's greatest theologians, believed the universe was governed by divine principles that could be understood through reason. But not everyone agreed. Fear of the unknown outweighed the search for truth, and soon the church was burning books, hunting alchemists, and erasing every trace of this ancient knowledge. The message was clear. There are truths that can't be spoken, but the real initiates always knew the flame of alchemy can never be extinguished. What's lost is reborn. What's hidden always finds a new way to rise. And that's how alchemy, even in the shadows, survived, waiting for the right moment to return. The Philosopher's Stone, the ultimate symbol of alchemy. As we've seen so many times here on the channel, alchemy was always so much more than just the quest to turn lead into gold. The true masters knew that this transmutation didn't just happen in the material world. It happened, above all, inside each human being. They called this the Great Work, a process that can't be bought, taught, or forced. It has to be lived, and like every great mystery, this path was coded into symbols, hidden inside metaphors, and protected from those who weren't ready to see. The alchemical journey doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds in 3 major stages, each one demanding the initiate to let go of something to get closer to their true essence. This process was described by the ancients as the 3 great works of alchemy. But what most people don't realize is that these stages aren't just about formulas and experiments. They reflect a deep internal process of self-transformation. The first stage is Nigredo, the black work. This is the moment of dissolution, the symbolic death of the ego. It's when everything that once felt solid starts to break apart. This stage is marked by chaos, confusion, and a direct confrontation with your inner shadows. Old beliefs are destroyed, illusions start to crumble, and you're left face to face with your raw, unfiltered truth. Nigredo is the point where a lot of people give up. It can show up in life as existential crises, deep suffering, and an overwhelming sense of being lost. But for those who keep going, this destruction is only the beginning. Then comes Albedo, the white work. Here, the alchemist starts to rebuild what's been purified by the fires of Nigredo. Albedo is clarity, the light after the dark. This is the stage where consciousness begins to expand, where higher truths start to make sense. The initiate realizes that everything that happened in Nigredo had a purpose. They had to die in order to be reborn. This is a calmer, more subtle stage, but still just as challenging. A lot of people think the journey ends here, but there's still one final step. The last stage is Rubedo, the red work. This is the moment of true completion. It's when everything comes together, and the alchemist finally integrates all the knowledge gained from the previous stages. Rubedo is full awakening, the fusion of the material and the spiritual, the ultimate transformation. If Nigredo was death and Albedo was purification, Rubedo is resurrection. This is the state of elevated consciousness where a human being becomes everything they were always meant to be. And this is where the Philosopher's Stone comes into play. Because contrary to what a lot of people think, the stone was never just a physical object. In reality, it represents that fully transformed state of consciousness. Many alchemists dedicated their entire lives to this quest, but only a few are said to have actually made it to the end. Names like Nicolas Flamel, Paracelsus, and even Isaac Newton show up in the story as possible holders of this secret. Flamel, for example, claimed to have found the knowledge of the Philosopher's Stone inside a mysterious manuscript that, according to him, contained symbols and messages that could only be understood by those who were already prepared. His writings describe a transmutation process that went far beyond chemistry, a process that transformed not just metals, but the human being itself. But maybe one of the most interesting parts of the Philosopher's Stone is its connection to the figure of the alchemical Christ. In some esoteric traditions, the path of the great work is seen as a mirror of Jesus' own journey. Nigredo as the crucifixion, Albedo as the purification, and Rubedo as the resurrection. After all, the Philosopher's Stone was always described as the thing that brings immortality, unites opposites, and transcends the limits of matter. What if the real stone was never something to be found, but something to be awakened inside us? If there's one thing alchemy always taught, it's that the greatest secrets of the universe were never out there. They were always inside, but only those truly ready to walk this path can see it. The legacy of alchemy in modern science. A lot of the concepts that are now part of modern science actually came straight from alchemical thinking. What used to be seen as mystery, superstition, or just metaphor slowly started to be uncovered, but without science ever fully admitting how much it owed to the old masters. One clear example is modern chemistry itself, which was born directly out of alchemical practices. What we now call the periodic table was basically predicted by alchemists who spent centuries studying the properties of metals and how they could combine. Antoine Lavoisier, known as the father of chemistry, shook up science when he discovered that matter can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. And that's literally the core belief of alchemy, where everything in the universe is constantly going through processes of transmutation. But Lavoisier wasn't alone. Isaac Newton, besides all his groundbreaking work in physics, left behind manuscripts where he openly explored alchemy, trying to unlock the secrets of matter and light. And Robert Boyle, one of the pioneers of this scientific method, always argued that alchemy and chemistry were really just two sides of the same coin, both studying the hidden structure of reality. The craziest part, one of alchemy's oldest goals, the transmutation of elements, was written off as impossible for centuries. But today, modern science literally does it in nuclear labs, turning one element into another by manipulating atoms. In other words, what alchemists chased for centuries with symbols and primitive experiments is now scientific fact. The only difference is modern science only cares about manipulating matter from the outside, but alchemists believed the process outside was just a reflection of what happens inside the human being. And that's where Eastern alchemy comes into play. In Chinese Taoism, alchemy wasn't about turning metals into gold. It was about working directly with the body itself. Taoists believed longevity and even immortality could be reached through internal purification. Qi, the vital energy, was the real gold to be refined. That's why practices like Neidan or internal alchemy focused on transforming the body's dense, raw energy into something more subtle and elevated. They saw the human body as a living alchemical lab, where every organ, every internal fluid played an essential role in the path to enlightenment. In Indian alchemy, the idea of transmutation was directly tied to the awakening of Kundalini. Unlike the Western view, where the Philosopher's Stone was often seen as something external to be found, in India, that transformation was all about the inner journey. Kundalini was described as a dormant force at the base of the spine that, once activated, rises through the chakras, completely transforming the person's perception of reality. This wasn't just a poetic metaphor. For yogis, this was an actual physical experience, reached through specific techniques like pranayama breathing, mantras, and deep meditation practices. On top of that, both Chinese and Indian alchemists believed in the idea of elixirs of immortality. In the East, though, this search wasn't just about physical substances. It also included energetic and spiritual practices. There are even ancient stories of Taoist masters and yogis who were said to have lived for centuries by mastering the art of internal transmutation, refining their energies to the point of almost becoming immortal. For them, death wasn't the end. It was just another transformation, and the real alchemy was learning how to transcend that shift. If you really look at it, the parallels between Western and Eastern alchemy are impossible to ignore. Both were chasing transmutation. They just took different roads, one focusing on matter, the other on energy and consciousness. But in the end, both were talking about the same thing, a deep transformation process that's been present in every tradition, just coded in different ways. Alchemy in today's world. As we've already seen, alchemy is knowledge that was never limited to hidden books or secret labs. It's moved silently through history, camouflaged in symbols, carved into works of art, and even built into the structures around us. That's why, for those who know how to look, alchemy is everywhere, from the mysterious sculptures on medieval cathedrals to the cryptic paintings that still leave scholars scratching their heads. The master builders of the Gothic cathedrals weren't just skilled stonemasons. They knew the symbolic language of alchemy, and they embedded that wisdom into the stones and stained glass windows, turning those buildings into actual spiritual transmutation manuals, carved in stone. Every gargoyle, every column, every arch pointed to a hidden teaching about the inner processes of the human soul. The cathedrals weren't just churches, they were open-air alchemical labs, designed to guide those with eyes to see through the exact same stages of the great work. That same symbolic tradition slipped into Renaissance art. Leonardo da Vinci, for example, was obsessed with Hermetic and esoteric knowledge. His paintings weren't just visual records. They were layers upon layers of hidden messages about human nature, the natural world, and the connection between the microcosm and macrocosm. Works like The Last Supper or The Annunciation can actually be read as visual alchemical formulas, where every element, every position, and every glance carries a deeper meaning hiding right in plain sight. Same thing with the paintings of Hieronymus Bosch, filled with hybrid beings, hidden portals, and scenes describing both the purification and the fall of the soul. But the secret didn't stay locked inside churches and museums. It stayed alive inside the secret societies that popped up across post-medieval Europe. The Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, and other esoteric orders all adopted alchemical principles as the core of their rituals and teachings. Behind every Masonic symbol, the compass, the square, the rough stone, is the exact same story of alchemy, transforming an ordinary human into someone fully awake and aware of their true nature. It's no coincidence that many of these groups refer to their members as workers of the great work. Building the external temple was always just a metaphor for building the inner temple, and if you think all of this is ancient history, think again. Alchemy never disappeared, it just changed form. Today, if you want to understand and apply this knowledge, you don't need furnaces and glass flasks, because the real alchemy happens inside you. Every crisis, every doubt, every loss or rebirth is an opportunity for transmutation. And understanding that flips the way you see your entire life. Alchemy teaches you that nothing is fixed and everything can be transformed. Your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your energy. When you realize your pain isn't your enemy, but raw material for your growth, you start living the real great work. That's alchemy applied to real life, turning fear into courage, doubt into clarity, attachment into freedom. And this isn't just philosophy, it's a practice. Every time you choose to respond with awareness instead of running on autopilot, you're acting as an alchemist. The key to all of this is simple but powerful. Imagination and intention shape reality. The ancients knew it. Modern science is starting to catch on, and you can experience it for yourself. When you imagine a new reality for yourself and align your actions, thoughts, and emotions with that vision, you start transmuting your own destiny. That's the real magic behind alchemy. It's not superstition, it's spiritual technology. And that brings us to the final point of this journey, what alchemy really means for our times and why it's more essential now than ever. In a world where everything is fast, shallow, and scattered, Alchemy is a forgotten map, reminding us that real transformation is internal, deep, and progressive. You can memorize manifestation techniques, repeat affirmations, or follow the latest spiritual trends, but if you don't understand the inner process of transmutation, all of that is just surface-level decoration. Alchemy today is the art of recognizing that every challenge is raw material waiting to be transformed. It's understanding that the anger eating you up inside can be refined into clarity and conscious action, that the fear holding you back can be transformed into wisdom and courage, that every loss carries the seed of rebirth. This is the real psychological alchemy, a term Carl Jung brought back into modern awareness, showing that the same symbols and stages the old alchemists wrote about are actually describing the deep processes inside our own psyche. Nigredo, albedo, and rubedo aren't just historical ideas. They play out inside each of us every time we grow and evolve. At the end of the day, alchemy is the art of turning everything raw into something refined: thoughts, emotions, energy, even matter itself. It teaches us that nothing is stuck and everything can be worked on and elevated. And more than that, it reminds us that the greatest masterpiece isn't turning metal into gold. It's turning yourself into someone conscious, awake, and free. If you made it this far, you've already started your own great work, and like every true alchemist knows, the first thing you need to transmute is the illusion that you're just a spectator in your own life. Because you're not. You are the fire, the alchemist, and the raw material all at once. The choice to stay asleep or start working on your own transmutation is yours and yours alone. And before you go, there's something important I need to tell you. In the first pinned comment, I left 2 books I highly recommend for anyone who's just starting out with alchemy and really wants to dive deeper into this knowledge. Oh, and if you want to directly support the channel and help make sure this kind of content keeps reaching you, there's also a link in the pinned comment where you can donate. And of course, if you want to leave a suggestion or share your own experience with alchemy, just drop a comment or hit the super thanks button here on YouTube. Your support is essential to help this community grow even more. Thanks so much for everything, and I'll see you in the next video.